welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO and VC podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, business, and investing from the inside out. And that was funny. There's a 5-second countdown, just so everyone knows, for Riverside. And Ron and I were pulling funny faces at each other as we were waiting to hit record. I wonder if everyone does that, Ron.
I don't like to waste time.
No,
You got to do something with it.
Neither. Ron Shigeta, based in California. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Is it Belinda or Belinda? I want to say Belinda.
It's Belinda. No, it's Belinda, but it's B. Well, and it's B because you need bees in this world, and I've got the yellow going on, and
Yeah.
bees are here to make sure the world is a better place, if you ask me. So yeah, I'm a bee.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's a
good
good
to
place.
have you. It's good to have you on the show, Ron. You've got quite the background, quite the story. I'm going to jump straight on into it and then let you share, because I feel like you're going to throw a few, not curveballs. I just feel like you're going to give me some different, angles of our conversation. Like you just said before, it's going to be a very formless conversation, and I feel like this one's going to be. You're a startup mentor, advisor, founder, and operator who has worked with 140 plus groundbreaking teams. And I bolded that. You have deep experience across food tech, biotech, molecular food, nearly got that right, clean meat, and emerging science-led ventures. Through acceleration, you support founders in the messy edge of early stage company building, and it's so messy. If that early stage is so messy, I call it organized chaos, where scientific possibility, market reality, and founder resilience all collide. Your background spans entrepreneurship, startup advisory, product thinking, technical innovation, including patented work in genomic data systems. Big words here. You bring, Ron, a rare combination of scientific depth and founder pattern recognition. Having built multiple businesses yourself and advised across a wide range of early stage teams, you understand that venture is not just about the idea. It's about how quickly founders can learn, adapt, and stay close to the truth of what the market is showing them. And for me, what I understood in most detail was, this is really critical. You help founders move from invention to application, from complexity to clarity, and from raw possibility into something that can actually live in the world. Tell us a bit about your journey. Tell us a bit about all I've just shared with the listeners.
We're just talking about how you have a special talent there. I mean, you really unpacked it, and there's a lot there, but I'm going to repack it up to make it sort of like fit into someone's head first. So I'm a PhD scientist, and that's why I'm so deep into biotech. And about 10 years ago, I decided I've got to get out from behind my desk. I was running a software group and doing a lot of biology, and having a pretty good time, to be honest. But I moved to the Bay Area to do something more entrepreneurial. And I thought, it's going to happen now, or, let's try to make it happen. So I ended up, long story short, I ended up being a venture capitalist. But really what was doing is me and my co-founder were hired into a venture capital firm to start a biotech accelerator. It was called Indie Bio. And so we were the first VC accelerator for biotech. Before that, biotech was like, hey, I need $4 or $6 million, and then I can get started. It's very, very difficult to get that kind of money. And we felt that things were getting more agile, just like tech was getting more agile. It wasn't too expensive to get access to a computer. That's when the internet took off. And now the same thing has happened to biotech. So basically my first job with startups was I quit my job. I still had my family and my mortgage. But I left everything behind to sort of like, we would pick out a class of 12 to 15 investments. And then we had about 4 months to get them to be presentable and look like good investments and to understand some idea of what they were up against. So we would basically speed run for 4 months with 10, 15 companies, day in and day out. All of us in the accelerator were in there, 40 to 60 hours a week.
Wow.
But it was intense. But it was also the kind of thing where you really couldn't look back. You were like, oh, I could go back to my old things. Like, no, that's gone. So it was a really good incentive to sort of learn to do these things. And that's kind of what I like doing, because what I see is that people who just sort of, they might have a really great deck and they might get some money, but often if they haven't been there before, they don't really, they don't really, it's really hard for them. So I want to help people make that adjustment. I find that's the most pleasurable thing for me.
Mm.
And all the different dimensions of that, especially in biotech,
Yeah.
that's kind of I've been doing the past few years.
It's fascinating. I love the call out of not looking back. And, like I was saying this to someone the other day, or it could even have been yesterday. There's no
Hmm.
looking back. This is it, right? Like, is that where, you have this career for so long, you think you're on this trajectory, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to do something differently.
Yeah, it is. And I think that I've realized there are it's different. People have different personalities. And some people absolutely cannot handle it. They just don't like it. And I really don't think they should do that. Get a good job, perform really well because that's what you do. And you know what you have to do. You have to know what you have to do to keep going. And there's a comfort to that, and then you can save money and you can do very well. I think though that I just really have this sort of mentality where I really kind of need to be more independent. I need to be doing something new periodically, and I love meeting people with great ideas and talking about them and helping them realize it. There's just this 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 sort of need. I suppose you have something like that, right? We just like new ideas, meeting people, and just get that stimulus. Constant stimulus is just
Yeah, it's a
so much
constant.
better for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's a constant stimulus. I think you also highlighted a really interesting point, and I'd like to drill into that if that's okay with you. You talked
Mhm.
around the pitch deck, and quite often, and you would see this a lot. There's a pitch deck. Seeking investing, etc. And yet, it's almost like for me, I call it the good old shiny, and PowerPoint's not even the right word anymore. And it's almost like, ta-da, I've got it all here. And yet
Mm.
there's a real space missing when it comes to implementation, execution. So I feel like this comes right back to your raw possibility piece where it's like, well, how come this isn't working? And why aren't I getting the traction that I need to get? And yet, so then you come in and go,
Or why do all the investors I talk to, why do they all pass? Like that's all the kind of question that comes up because you think your deck, everybody puts their deck out and they really think it's pretty good. But then, yeah, there's all kinds of missing pieces. And sometimes it's tolerable and you can get a thumbs up from the people who see the deck. Sometimes there's something big missing and you have to find it and
well,
you can't always see it. So that's kind of a big deal. In fact, I would say over half. Well, first of all, let's put some numbers on this. The typical venture capitalist or investor, if they're out there and they're sort of known to be an investor, they might see 300 decks a year. And if they're in a moderate sized fund, they may invest in 5 themselves a year, 5 investments a year. So we're talking about 5 out of 300 or something like that. It's like you have basically to be investable, you kind of need to be in the top 2 or 3% of all the decks that person sees that year. And there's lots of reasons people are below that cutoff. Some of them are your fault and some of them aren't. But if the parts that are your fault are going to prevent you from ever getting funded, right? You have to be pretty good, and then you find your people, and then that bumps you up into the fundable range.
what is the
And
biggest gaps, Ron, you see in the pitch decks? Like you called it out. Like what is the biggest?
okay, this is a deal. Tell me if you've heard this one before, but basically, if you're experiencing you've done something a few hundred times, you get very fast at taking it in. Like a veterinarian doesn't need to look at a cat a long time. So, oh, that cat's sick, or that cat's small, or that cat's no problem. The basic assumption, the basic feelings come in pretty quick. And so people are stunned when someone can just sort of look at somebody pitch or go through they'll spend 30 seconds with a deck they don't like. That will be it. And they actually took in a lot. And so the like no entrepreneur, especially unless you've actually gone from entrepreneurship to being an investor and seeing all these decks, nobody pitching actually understands decks that well.
Mm,
They just haven't seen that many hundreds of decks.
mm.
And so they're like, why did you only go 30 seconds to take, so there's a lot of experiential issues there. The number one thing though is the personal qualities at the end pitch. The number one thing people look for is clarity of mind,
Mm,
right?
mm.
You don't, I mean, you don't want to give money to the guy who's sort of well, you may want to, but if you had investment money, you would not invest in a guy who's sort of like panhandling for money on the street. He's like, he's talking about how the military's, evil and the tax man screwed him over and his ex-wife is the devil. Like it's like, well, it's all over the place. Like, don't you have one thing? Can't you just complain about one thing? So a lot of people don't really have a clear idea of what they're doing and they can't say what it is. Like if your pitch takes most people I engage, they don't have an elevator pitch, right? They don't have the 30-second, 3-sentence pitch. That is representation that you have understood what you do well enough. I've never met anybody I couldn't create an elevator pitch for. So a lot of people say it's not possible to get an elevator pitch. And like, well, it's not possible for me to wait that long to listen to you. So, you mean you're not going to get in. But I have, there is clarity required. And so we often then start working on that. And, if I don't really believe someone wants to do that or can do it, then, I'm not really the person to help them, is basically how it works. So that would be the number one thing. That probably gets you to 60th or 70th percentile, just there, just being able to say, what I do is, I'm beating dogs around the world. I'm like, it doesn't have to have every detail in it, but just has to sort of like be the mission and sort of give people an idea of where you're going, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you call that out, and I think that we add layer upon layer upon layer to everything we do and every story we tell, and what you're talking about here is stripping it right back. And I'm a big believer in the second elevator pitch, and it's interesting you call it out. I did a workshop last year and a masterclass, if you like, and I think it was over 100 women. And they were in STEM, and essentially, not one of them, when I asked who had an elevator pitch, not one of them had an elevator pitch. And it's like,
Yeah.
really big part of your personal identity, your business identity, and the brand's identity.
Yeah, what are people going to remember you for? I think it's going to be the thing that you do. And if it's clear in the here is mine, right? But yeah, no, people don't. And so why do you think that is though? So like why all these women, all these entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter if they're women, of course. You go in a room full of men, you'll have the same problem, the same experience level, right? So maybe women a little more, we can talk about that. But why is it that so many people in the room didn't have it?
You know, I asked that question. I actually did because I was just quite shocked. I was actually like blown away because my background's advertising and communication. So I've seen heaps of
Yeah.
commercials over the years, heaps of pitch decks, etc. And a lot of them just had honestly not thought about it. A lot of them, and I'm asking even the question now with a lot of people I'm talking to,
Well,
in business and entrepreneurs going, where's your, identity piece? I'm calling it an identity because it is essentially, it's that elevator pitch.
it's the identity for this conversation. It's not your total self,
No,
but
no, no.
that's not what you got to cut a little piece out, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
you
that is
totally
a
do.
new concept for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And a lot of people have been saying to me, yeah, that's the bit I'm not good at. And so they're good with the numbers, they're good
Yeah.
with,
Usually they're not, right?
and
You
they,
studied in college, like you actually went and got a job, and people would say, oh, Belinda, this is an interesting way to say it, but you got to tighten this up, or you used to
yeah,
getting feedback. So for me, a lot of people have never learned to take feedback at
yeah,
all,
yeah.
right? They just don't like to hear any negativity, which is why on a venture capital pitch, you get no feedback. It's really if someone says like, what we would have liked to have seen is a better go-to-market strategy, a better idea about your numbers, they're not believable, blah, blah, blah. If they had given you that list, they really, really trust you not to get mad at them for it and talk shit about them. Sorry, but I don't know if this is a family podcast, but
No, no, no. You
like,
can say we've
you
had
worry.
rain the last couple of days.
I mean, look, if you're in someone's face even a little bit, there's a good chance that they will resent you for it.
Mm,
And nobody wants that. So
mm.
you have to be the kind of person who's ready for that and longing for it and basically asking for it and picking up those cues when they're not obvious because nobody's going to say like, that was not a very good pitch. But what they will say is, well, we'll pass. It doesn't seem like the right time. And then you have to read all the reasons into that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but other people would say like, hey, we have a great pitch. Everybody loved our pitch, but we didn't get funding. I'm like, that never happens. it's just a matter of that kind of perspective. You have to sort of so there's a tuning that goes on when you want to start working for yourself, even if you're like running your own bake shop or a caterer or you're painting houses for a living, you're a contractor. Like you have to sort of like tune into what the customers like and don't like and learn how to draw them in and learn how to sort of get with them. And VC, it's even worse because it's even more sensitive because you're not asking for like $5,000 to paint somebody's doors. You're asking for like $500,000, and then there's a good chance they'll never see the money again. Like that's more complicated than asking dad for the cookies on Friday night. So people don't always remember that, like, hey, this is a lot of money, and people kind of want someone that they like, they understand, and is doing something that seems valuable to the investor, not just to the person who's
Yeah, it's
pitching.
a good point.
All of those things are stages that take a while for a lot of people.
Yeah. I just wanna go a little bit deeper into feedback, because you come across as somebody who is bright, optimistic, you know, you almost like I feel like you would give feedback. You would give
Yeah.
it
Can I
like,
talk about something? This is a great question. Can I talk about something super sensitive? Like, I want to sort of like trust. Let's build a trust bridge here. I want to talk about women entrepreneurs. Yeah, because but this has got to be a safe space because
"No,
that's
let's
the
do
main
it."
thing is like, yeah, because if you say something someone doesn't like and then people feel offended. But I'm going to do it anyway because the number one thing I do is I will tell people what they really need to hear. And sometimes my clients do storm off. It's only happened a few times in 10 years. So the thing about it is let's get back to the female entrepreneurs in the room. Like, especially if they're young women, they may not actually have someone in their life who will actually push back against them on a level of you did a good job, you did a bad
Mm,
job. Like that kind of criticism, not every kind of friend will do that.
no,
If you have been an athlete or have been in advertising or had to sort of perform for something on a very high spec, then people will do that, will
100%.
get that. And so it's not, you don't do that. But I think a lot of, if you're an engineer or you're a programmer or you know, if you're out there designing things and you just sort of like, if you don't run into the people or have that experience where I need feedback and I need to hear this is not good, or I may have to change everything about what I'm doing. That kind of professional experience is often missing. I think there's a slight chance that women get that a little less than men because men are always, at least their girlfriends tell. I'm sorry to be so sexist, but like when guys are dating, they constantly have to be looking at themselves and saying like, "What am I doing wrong?" Like the women
Mm,
get bored, they
mm,
walk away, and so it's not a huge asymmetry. Anyway, in any case, everybody has to look at themselves and say like, "Hey, am I really ready to take criticism?" I'll tell you a story. I have had like this. There was a couple guys I remember pitching. So here's a counter story, but like, I'm sitting there and for I'm volunteering, and someone's put up an entrepreneur with me, and I said, "Well, God, I'd like to help you. I'll give you some advice for free." I'm a, s- I'm public spirited. And, the guy goes on, he starts talking about all these people who come from his hometown who are successful. I'm like, well, that's interesting. It's not relevant, right? It's like, I'm from Berkeley. Do you know we discovered many of the transuranic elements in Berkeley? Like, nobody, you don't want to hear that on your
no,
podcast. It's sort of like, yeah, I'll go to Wikipedia and look it up after, but if you care, which you don't, like, so there's no filtering there. But then I'm just waiting and waiting. He starts talking about I don't even remember all kinds of things. I'm literally looking at the clock and 15 minutes pass and I say, I'm sorry, been 15 minutes and I still don't know what you do. Has that ever happened to you, Belinda? I mean, nobody even if you're at that level, you can't even imagine that someone has 15 minutes just to hear you unravel your story.
yeah, it's kinda wild.
Then yeah, and I'm just my whole thing is like, if you ever do that to an investor, your chances of getting actually heard just like plummet. So I want to get to that and talk to you about it. But
Yeah,
he took, actually both times that's happened to me that I remember, they got offended and kind of went off as like, this isn't a good fit. Okay, I can't argue with that. I'm not here to actually make someone angry. But if there's something you really need to hear, it's very important for me to be able to say it.
I get that, and I get that feeling. But coming back to women, let's come back to women for a second because
Yeah.
my feedback piece was coming to women. Are you saying to me that you don't think women get as much feedback as, say, men in terms of feedback? Because as a woman, I have a very, like you have, we all have this internal voice. So the internal voice
Hmm.
is always giving us feedback in a way, like,
Yeah. Kind of negative too
it's
sometimes for
negative,
women, aren't
right?
it?
And I think it's part of the reason why there's not as many female founders, there's not as many females seeking funding, etc. Are you saying that we need to be giving women more feedback to help them and to enable there to be more founders and more women seeking funding? Is that what you're getting at? Like, what's your
Not really. It's kind of worse than that. But first, I want to inject a factoid here that actually, in my experience, if I look at all the advisees, over half my companies are founded. They have a woman founder. So I'm really into that, and
amazing? I
I'm
love
trying
that.
to speak from my experience. You know what I mean? Women do need a lot of. I find myself learning to sort of be the professional friend, and just sort of like for more than men, I found it's really helpful to sort of put myself up there as a friend and try to make that bond. It's not always necessary for everybody, of course, but I find that is more helpful because of some of the ways that women's psychology, their experience often goes, or how they feel. And so when appropriate, but I will tell you, like, there's some things that happen with women that I do not happen with men. And this is probably, I don't think anybody will say this, but I'm going to, I guess.
Yeah, so this
So
is a safe space piece, right?
let's just say this is not one thing that happened. This has happened more than once to me. Like, I basically have this, I will say, the reason I'm successful is because I'll talk to anybody and listen to anything. When I was a venture capitalist, I was digging through the discard bin a lot of pitches. I was going to all kinds of pitch contests. Nobody there was going to get known. I would like find a little gem and I would polish it and polish and polish it and bring it in. That was I learn a lot when I talk to a lot of different people. So that's in my philosophy. Not always rewarding. And so I've had cases more than once where a female entrepreneur I don't know necessarily super well, but I mean, I don't know a lot of people that well. I mean, it's not a really intimate business usually. But someone will say they want advice. I say, well, okay, well, maybe we can get together, have some coffee sometime. And then like, they're like, yes. And then I think I actually have had them initiate something, or I have, something like, oh, I'm going to be in your lab today. Can I come in and see you guys? And then they'll say yes. And I'm like, okay. And then we'll have like set up a meeting in a public place. And then one time I actually saw her sneak out of the building while I was waiting at the lobby for another appointment. I'm like, you don't do that. I mean, I know it may feel inappropriate. If it is, just send a business email. You know how to do this, Belinda, right? You just send a business email like, something came up and I can't meet today. That's
Yeah,
all you have to do,
yeah.
right? Those complicated feelings, I realize that there is sort of this tension and it can feel like it's too much, but there was there was no plan in these cases. If you just read the news, it's not good to date from work. Like, I have an app.
So you're talking about these, like, you may thinking that there's these hidden agendas and there's actually not. It's just business is business.
Well, you got to learn to. I mean, I've coached a lot of women, and sometimes there are hidden agendas. I'm not
100%.
saying it's a clean business for everybody, but guys have to I mean, everybody's got to navigate stupid situations that are not quite right.
Yeah, totally.
And for women, it can get even less not right. And I totally acknowledge that. But just standing back and looking at all other things being equal, you just don't want to cut your access back by sacrificing certain meetings. Like, just you can skip the meeting, but just put everything on that professional plane, just like you want a man to do for you. And I think that you're going to do just a little better. You know what I mean? And I have no statistics about how many women have these feelings or have had these experiences. And because we often have them, we're unaware of them. That's even harder to track. But, it doesn't happen very often. But we do talk when I'm working with women, if it comes up, that we do talk about this kind of thing. So that was a little kind of that was the kind of thing never actually brought up out of my practice.
I think it's a really good call out, Ron, and I think it's a good one to share with the audience because, like there is it comes back to feedback and it comes back to I call it feedback with positive intent and it's that ability to be I think it's about being open and I think it's about just, like you say, being
Yeah,
that
some people are anxious. Some people are anxious, and it's totally fine. Or you'll get getting signals crossed happens all the time. Or sometimes even like there was one investor who was like having all these dinner meetings with one of my, one of my advisees, and she handled like a pro. She was just sort of like she actually had got all this feedback. She went over the deck and the pitch over and over with him. She got all the feedback and said like, okay, we're done. You know what I mean? Like that was really Machiavellian, but you know what? That worked pretty damn well. You know what I mean? Like she got something out of it in addition
yeah,
to controlling the situation. And so I think that, if you look at how you play that, you can do better. I think it's
I agree, Ron. And like, let's face it, it is like, and this is not me being brow burning. It is a man's world, and you have, like we have to learn how to play in this world. And I think that you might disagree with me. I do think like what you're talking about with your one of your business partners, and she played the game well. I think that it's unfortunate times that we have
who's
to.
going to do better? Someone who masters that game or someone who sort of like
No,
makes a lot of errors? Like
someone who masters
it's
it.
it's
We've
it's
got a
just
long way to go.
a marginal thing, but hey, everybody could use a few more percentage points. That's what I think.
Yeah, so I think it's a really
Get your RBI up.
yeah, insight into it. Tell us a little bit we've been talking for 27 minutes already, like, it's been a quite the free-flowing conversation.
But yeah.
Tell us a bit more about I've got a few questions here, and I wanna get into a bit about the biohacking space and what you're seeing.
Mm.
Let's start there actually because, it's from a science, you've got your science background. How important is the science and the heart and being conscious in the VC space as well, and in particular in the
Well, if I get to pick my kind of consciousness, I would say it's extremely important. I would say it's very, very important. And we talked about that a little bit. Like the first level of consciousness is like, what do you do? And then beyond that, there's all these sort of layers of questions that are sort of like, okay, why is that important? Like that's another good one. And a surprising number of people haven't actually gone through that. And if the answer is like, it's really important to me because actually, let me, I give you an example. Like, like working with women is important because I was raised by a single mom. That's not actually something I'm almost ever brought up actually with a client. You know what I mean? I'm just like, here we are, we're doing this right now, and then this is how it goes. Like we just do the coaching. Yeah. So, but beyond that, there are so many. I mean, basically, I think it's important that I understand the technology, and sometimes we do tweak it to improve the direction and focus on the market or the practicality of implementing it. But what's really important, I spend over 50% of my time trying to get people to sort of see themselves and understand what they're doing. Like that is still
I
the
love that.
number one missing thing. And nobody's going to invest in you.
No.
If they get a hint that you're just kind of like,
Beige.
dumb as you're like a brick, like if you're just sort of bricked, like nobody's gonna invest in that because you have to be able to think on your feet and negotiate in conversation, and so many things happen.
I've always said you have to have a market, your own market. What's your market? Have you ever heard that one? Like, always said they don't have a market or this, like yeah. It's probably not the
I have to say,
language, but yeah.
I wish I heard it more often, actually, Belinda, because so one of the biggest things I work with is food technology. And
Yeah.
that was a huge boom. And over about like 8 years, $10 billion went into it. And I felt great about it at the time because I kind of assumed that people were going to be really sort of like the level of rigor of those questions would go up, and they didn't go up fast enough. Right. So not enough, a lot of the companies failed because they did not they underestimated the market they're selling to. And in food, for instance, that was one of the great powers of investing, because if you produce food and people eat it, they have an understanding on level that it's very hard to understand a drug, for instance, or a diagnostic at that level. It's like, I ate this cheese, it's good. is very deep actually. But then people would sort of, I think all the entrepreneurs, most of the entrepreneurs and a lot of the investors did not understand that food is incredibly competitive and selling it is not easy. People sort of think like, oh, I'll make my Kraft macaroni and cheese, I'll put it on the shelves, and people will buy it just like they buy macaroni, Kraft macaroni. No, Kraft macaroni and cheese is a juggernaut brand that's like decades old, and they know how to sell millions of boxes. You don't know anything. Like people weren't really, people only started to understand that after like 7 years. So we're getting that point where everybody's trying to get more competitive with that and really be able to play with the actual food players.
Mm,
But yeah, that's a level that was so high up that a lot of people
yeah.
never got to it because you're working on this food and or this product, and after 4 or 5 years it's ready, and then you said, oh, let's hire people to put it in boxes and you know put a nice name on it, and then we'll sell it. Like, no, that does not make sales.
No,
And they found out too late. So
it's kids
that's
going up this identity, this elevator pitch. Tell me a little bit about what are the core traits of groundbreaking teams? You've worked with, you said you've worked with over 140 plus groundbreaking teams. You've had 6 businesses
yeah.
yourself. What do you see
All
as
but 20 of them are dead now. I just want to throw that in there. Yeah. So I it's a selective few that are surviving now. Some of them are doing really well. Some of them are still sort of like moving up the ladder but slower. I think some people get, and the thing about it is there's no one thing that makes the ones that are doing well. There's no single one factor there. I mean, sometimes, there's always getting really lucky. Like if you have a lot of money invested in you, your investors and your whole network are trying to help you. And if you're really good at accepting help, that can work really well, right? It's like, oh, I know you're doing this. Like, let me introduce you to the people who are Trader Joe's. Like they'll do that. But they'll only do it if you're ready. So that's like everything's sort of got to like, that's coincidence.
sync
And
up?
that's why a lot of the companies are dead if that doesn't work out. But other people, I think the most important thing is kind of what you guys talk about here is culture. If you have this sort of learning mode and then your organization you've built up, by the time you've got a product ready for market, you've got at least 10 or 12 people. Some people have 60 or 100 people working for them. At that point, you have to be ready to reshape the organization into from a research and development startup into a product food company, for instance. And
Mm,
that understanding where you're coming from and where you're going and finding the right people to get that right tone and to sort of rally the troops in the right way. That's, if you think about it, that's a lot.
mm.
And that's another very rare transition. That a startup person has transitions that they have to
Yeah, I
go through.
agree. It's a
And there's
transitions are full on.
the number one, do you, I'll give you one guess. Like, what do you think? Like, my opinion, I have one. Like, what do you think the number one issue is there? What is the one number one mistake that one does when one's facing that kind of,
When they're scaling or just in terms of when they're building out the team in terms of the transition?
yeah, the transition to scaling. Yeah. Transition to selling.
Think this is gonna be really, I guess
Ooh, I love to hear it.
one of the biggest, I think you can't have a culture without a system and you can't have a system without a culture. And I think when
Mhm.
system is broken or you don't have a system, it can't be broken when you're scaling, like in all my experience, like you can
Mhm.
start off just like messy,
Mhm.
chaotic. And then it gets to a point, and I say this as an advisor to various founders and their businesses all the time, you guys need to start putting some systems in place. And they're like, we
That's
don't
right.
have time, we don't have time. Then all of a sudden, the wheels start falling off culturally. This person's pissed off. This person, they're bringing new people into the team. Let's also introduce now AI and machines. That is part of your culture.
Mhm.
I read this fascinating article about it yesterday in terms of the deficit that's been created in businesses with AI and just not thinking about that addition to the culture and the team. And so
That's
for
right.
me,
Even a little shift, even like adding a new piece of software to the desktop,
yeah, like
it can
we're
be
not,
really disruptive.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's where I see the biggest. I've always had glitches. I've always in my own lived experience in scaling and also what I still see now. And then all of a sudden it's like, we need all these systems or we need values put into action with our culture. It's like,
I wasn't going to write on a Post-it note and leave
yeah,
it on your
it's like,
desk.
hello, you're listening now. It comes back to this listening. Comes back to listening and taking the feedback.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What's
Actually,
your
I
feedback?
would say that was a great answer. That was a really, that's probably a better answer than mine. Uh, how it manifests when it's not happening well is what I would say is people, especially when people are venture capital backed, is that they tend to try to buy functionality.
Mm,
Right. And so this happens. A lot of companies are like, well, we're just going to have to buy a bunch of salespeople to sell the food,
mm.
and salespeople come in, they're just like, you throw the product over the wall to them and like, here's what we need to sell. Okay. And you're just like, just sell, like, and they're like, well, that's not
So
happening quite right. And
true.
like, it's really awful. Right. And so buying, whether it's technical ability or software engineering or transport logistics or delivery or sales, if the founders don't really care and they try to just basically throw that responsibility at somebody, going to be the connection will be broken because the product and the rest of the company won't be sort of like functionally working with them, the culture like you're talking about. And people don't really understand how running a fragmented company like that. That's just another way of saying what you were saying. But there was a startup that died recently, and when they walked in there to sort of like take everything apart, they had like over 100 salespeople, and this product was on the shelf in almost every market, every major market in the United States. But they were losing money because the product was on the shelves because the grocery stores were paid, but nobody wanted to buy it. Hence the end of the company. Like that's a classic example of trying to buy functionality from a position of ignorance. I even saw this guy, this venture capitalist talk the other day on a panel. He's like, every founder has to make the first sales because
Yeah, great.
then the founder understands what this. I'm like, you can't just hire Belinda to come and like, Belinda, go sell this stuff. It's you know, you know,
I
it's a
agree.
floor wax and a shoe and it's cake icing. Like what am I supposed to do with this? Yeah, gotta say you were gonna say,
Can I add to that, Ron? I think that every
yeah,
founder,
please.
I really love your by functionality analogy, by the way. I hadn't heard that one before. I like it. I'm going to borrow that if that's okay. I
Of course.
also think that the founder has to experience everything they're creating and building in their business the minute and then you that's my opinion is this again you could challenge me or debate me on this one. I just think that there's no such thing as shortcuts when you're originally starting something. You have to experience
Yeah.
it all. And the minute you start just shortcutting, you're going to hit again. You're going to hit a, a a friction point or a block because you've taken a shortcut when actually take the time to actually like be in the mess of it all, work through how do I get to the next step or the next point? And then once you understand it, you understand your own ecosystem, your own
Mm,
business,
mhm.
then bring in and get the right
Then you can manage somebody to do the sales or whatever.
Totally, that's what I think. I just think that we're wanting to things to happen too quickly.
I've seen that over and over and over again. Actually, it's just that one example is just one of many where
Yeah,
people assume like, oh, just, here's my product. You're going to make me rich now. Well, if you think about it, like, there are very few employees that are going to do that.
yeah,
Very few. And they want a lot of money because they want to say, oh, you mean we're going to get rich? That's the
yeah.
only way to get some of that perform. And, a good salesperson like Belinda Murray or some other veteran coming along, like if
Who
they can sell $20 million of product in the first year, they have lots of options on what to do. And
Yeah,
what are you going to pick? You're going to pick the product that makes the most sense where people really want it. It's got to be all aces,
yeah,
right? For a really good person to come like to pay them to sell it. Like the sales got to be very clear to whoever's coming in. And, to be honest, the founder's the only one who really is going to understand the product for a while. You got to at least explain it in a convincing way to your salesperson.
yeah. Agree.
But,
Oh my
yeah,
Ron, we've been talking for 40 minutes. I said to you, let's just chat for 30. This has been like one of my, flowest conversations of late in terms
oh,
of just
wonderful.
bang, 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 bang. And I was going to ask you for some advice. However, you've given so much advice, so many words of wisdom. What
I
would
give everybody a free hour. So,
what
yeah,
would
let's
what
go.
would be your final share? Like, what would you like to leave?
What's my last piece of advice?
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? I'm gonna tell you, I'm actually writing a book. So I'm starting over on sort of this authorship thing. And I was at a writers meeting. We're all just talking and we're talking about what it is to get an agent. And like one of the guys is sort of like, I understand that intimidation. He was like, oh, these people, the publishers and the agents, they just want to make money and they have to, you know, and they have to get the most commercial thing. They're not really understand the artists and like all this stuff like this. And I understand where that's coming from. I have been there, and being an entrepreneur is the same. But I had to stop him and I had to say, look, think about you're going to pitch this book agent. They can take 10 people a year. They hear hundreds and hundreds
Mm,
of pitches. And most people come to them, all they want to do is talk about their book and try to get the agent to work for them
mm,
on their terms.
mm,
And if you approach somebody that you're looking at to help you, if you look at them as a human being and ask yourself, what can I do for them?
mm.
You're much more likely, and you think about what you're asking for. When you're pitching even an employee, you're asking them to invest part of their life into you and what your idea.
Yeah.
If you don't have that gratitude,
I love it.
how are they going to feel about you? They're gonna be like, oh, you're the worst boss. You're almost as bad as my last boss. You know what I mean? Like that's the best you
Yeah.
can do.
So true. I love
And
it.
that's another level of consciousness that some people, it's everybody starts there at the bottom. You kind of like fear people above you. And that's a very natural attitude. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is a rite of passage to get through that
Yeah.
to really be able to operate freely, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh, Ron, what a great conversation. I'm having all the feels today. Thank you so
That's
much.
great. Yeah.
It's
Thanks.
such a bright, energetic, yeah, conversation. So many takeaways from our chat. Thank you so much. And
That was fun.
I can't wait to read your
I love
book.
talking to marketing people too.
Have you got a work in progress title?
Do I have a good work? My book, I've never actually announced it before, but it's getting close. So the working title is Neuroparent, and the book is about parenting and neuroscience.
Very cool.
See, that's my pitch. I actually got it down to one sentence.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great pitch.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thank you. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't wait to read
Makes me
it.
feel
I look
good.
forward to it.
Still going on.
How do we find out more about you? Where do we go?
I'm on LinkedIn and I can be reached there. I'm very open to taking connections. I have my website, iaccelerate.tech, and my email is ron@iaccelerate.tech. So you can just put that there. I'm happy to talk to people.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time and wishing you a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Well, it was a lot of fun. So it's great to meet you, Belinda.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Ron.